Agenda item number 4, Community Development Monthly Reports. Pete Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Building permits for the month of July 27, zoning permits 27, and code enforcement 14. The reason for that is we are experiencing an issue with one of our inspectors being out for a period of time. So we expect it to be for the next 2 weeks. So we have significantly cut back on the zoning code enforcement or being out in the field on those matters so that we can take care of more immediate pressing needs of building inspection. So that will be most likely short our average of 40 that we do monthly next time I report to you. So we're recovering. One of the individuals that's helping support usually does work for equalization. We're bringing somebody else in for our company to work in equalization that typically doesn't work here. So.
Any questions for Pete? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5, consider approving a request for amendment to the Shiawassee County zoning map for property located in section 33 of Bennington Township, parcel ID number 010-33-200-003-04, from A2 agricultural production rural residential to M1 light industrial, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents. Ordinance number 19-08-02. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have support? I have support. Okay, discussion. Pete, you want to start us out?
Yeah.
This property is approximately 1.5 acres and located in section 33 of Bennington Township. This is another one of the rezonings that on its face does not necessarily meet the master plan. However, after deliberation at the Planning Commission level, hearing of public comment and holding a proper public hearing, the decision was made to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the rezoning. Essentially what the applicant is proposing is to rezone a 1.5 acre property to M1 light industrial. They have offered conditions that limit the use only to cold storage and as well as maintaining the existing buffering and vegetation around the site. The access point will be off of Tyrell Road. If this is approved, our office will then be conducting an administrative site plan review at that point, and we move forward with the development of the site. I know Mr. Horvath is here, as well as the applicant for the property, as well as some interested folks from the area that live nearby the site.
Okay, any questions for Pete? Gary?
Did Bennington Township approve it or not?
No,
Bennington.
we have Matt Dutcher here who's going to speak for Bennington Township. So.
Okay. I just was
But they voted against it. Any questions? Anything else for Pete? Okay.
I'll be available if you have any other questions.
Okay, so let's start with Bennington Township. Mr. Dutcher.
Well, Bennington Township replied to the rezoning after consideration by both the Planning Commission and our board with a letter to the Planning Commission. That letter included a motion that we did at our board meeting recommending a denial of the rezoning based on the fact that it doesn't meet the future land use plan and there's no other similar zoned property adjacent or even nearby this parcel. We got some feedback from the residents that attended the County Planning Commission meeting that our letter was kind of played down as irrelevant because nobody was there to speak on behalf of the township, and my hope was that the letter would have some weight even without somebody there to speak on it. Other concerns we have is, he saw that there was some special limits on what they can do with the property, but basically our opinion was if you zone it light industrial, you're not really approving a project, you're approving whatever can go in light industrial in this process. And quite frankly, we don't have services in our township to support industry. We don't have water, we don't have sewer, we don't have, all our fire is farmed out to other townships. And we have a pretty solid plan that we've stood behind for the last 10 years of what we want future use plan out there, and it doesn't meet that. Some projects have been rezoned in our area, and the feeling has been that, oh, there's already some existing use there, we really gotta give it to them, whatever. There's no existing use of this property at this point or in the past that makes it light industrial, to my knowledge. I'm just here to say that, you know, our other experience just on the side is that most everything that gets applied for gets approved. Or anytime somebody asks for some variance or zoning, it gets approved by the county. That's been our experience all the time, and so we're kind of sitting back thinking, what is the real use of planning and zoning? And every request for something that doesn't fit is approved. So anyway, we're officially not in favor of rezoning this piece of property.
I got a question for you then. A couple questions. The fire, was Perry service that part of your township?
Probably that part is serviced by Perry.
Perry.
Is this the site plan we got here? Is this the one?
Yeah, that's it right there.
Huh?
That's it in front of you. Yep. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's on State Highway then, on 52, is that it?
Yep.
My only consideration is if we're gonna do anything on state highways is where things should be, you know, so. Even though it's not in the master plan.
What do we use the master plan for?
Well, they're not written in gold, so that's the reason why. We did over, Wheeler Trucking was the same way, that was over in Hazelton Township.
Yeah.
You know, that was on 13, and so that's the reason it wasn't in the master plan, you got 40 acres, you know, for industrial use.
So your board's concern is the zoning gets changed. A year from now, this person sells it, and then
Now it's zoned light industrial, whatever can happen on light industrial can pretty much go forward without.
can you give us a kind of a definition or the kind of boundaries, the difference between like if it's zoned commercial light industrial versus just having a special use permit under the ag zone?
Well, if the ag zoning did allow for this as a special use permit, then we could go that route. However, we do not have that as a special land use. So it has to be written into the ordinance that this is a special land use. So without that, without the actual text of the zoning ordinance being amended to allow that, I have no tools in my bag in order for the planning commission to consider it. With the rezoning, that's a legislative action that the planning commission is only a recommending body. The reason you don't find in agricultural districts special uses with this type of activity is because we have a heck of a lot more agricultural zoning districts than we do commercial and industrial districts. So it would have a lot more spread out impact than it would with narrow areas, corridors and such. So that's why these folks we've dealt with a number of times in the past couple of years have been focused on state highways.
So you're saying if there was a change to the ordinance and the agricultural places that are zoned agriculturally were allowed to move forward with this kind of project by changing the ordinance, then that would apply to all of the agricultural zoning.
Yes.
We don't want to do that.
That's up to you
So-
folks as the legislative body, what you want to
Yeah.
do.
Probably don't.
So when it's lighted, how many other different projects go in there? I mean, it could be a car repair and all that kind of stuff, or not?
The applicant has offered a condition, which is in the resolution, that says this site can only be used for cold storage only.
Oh, so none of the other things can apply then?
None. They limited it very
Oh.
specifically to that one use.
Would that apply to a subsequent property owner?
Yes.
Oh,
Conditional rezoning was put in, yes, almost 12 years ago, because of these such things that would come up, because folks would get hung up on changing a district because of the variety of uses.
yeah.
Especially-
That's what I was asking.
Right, sexually oriented businesses and those sort of things were out there in industrial districts. So this gave the ability only if the applicant offers. You can't require it from them, the planning commission can't, only if the applicant's offered, and the applicant offered it during the public hearing.
So that's very similar to what we had in Woodhull Township
Correct.
with the Fighteners who volunteered or committed to do certain things.
Correct. They did not severely limit their future uses as this applicant has.
Pete, I have a question to that though. So the applicant has agreed or offered these conditions. So 2 years, 4 years from now, if that property's sold, the new owner is just gonna come and say, a variance. Can I do this? And then we're gonna approve it. So I don't think those conditions, I'm not sure those really matter.
Well, they would not be able to get a variance. Use variance is prohibited probably about a decade ago, so they would not be able to go that route. But they could come back through the planning commission and ask for a new zoning district to overlay the one that was approved with conditions. So then it would be up to the planning commission and the board to consider that request.
That's true for any property owner that sells their land to someone else, they can all do that too.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's subject to any property out there.
Right. But
So
it-
do the conditions really matter?
It does if future boards and commissions hold to them,
How large is a piece of property?
just an acre and a half. We estimate with the setbacks, the consumer's power going through there, that they're gonna be able to get a decently sized building in there and some storage area, but that's it. With it being a corner lot and stuff, there's not too much that they're gonna be able to do with it. Consumers usually has a 20 to 30-foot setback either side of their power lines. And the applicant who's been dealing with those folks, because we have not received a permit yet, or application yet, to process the development on the site, but they can talk to you about what they've encountered so far.
Okay, anything else for Pete? Okay, we'll move on. Justin for that.
Yeah, and I'll introduce Jason right after this, but just a couple of comments. I think Pete explained the situation very well, and I do understand the concern that Bennington has and some other local communities. The reality is, development wants to be on our state highways and on our freeway, and I think, it's not like a broken record, I know, but I've been in front of this board many times in the last few years, and I believe every single one of them has come on a state highway or I-69. This is where Commissioner Holzhausen said, this is where commerce wants to be, this is where development wants to be. So can we find a way, apart from this project, to look at opportunities for creating overlay districts, special use permits, where maybe it doesn't require the need to rezone. That being said, as Pete said, conditional zoning is there to provide those protections, to provide that balance, to allow commerce to be able to move forward while also taking into account the concerns of the residents. And Jason and his company, as you heard Pete say, I think has gone above and beyond by severely limiting what could be there. Cold storage really only allows for his business to be there, or maybe a very similar business. So the concerns over there being lots of other industrial projects that would go in there simply won't happen under the zoning. And it would require, as Pete said, having to go back through multiple boards in the future, which really means, in my opinion, it's likely to stay the same. So hopefully long-term we can work on some of those issues, but obviously we have an immediate opportunity right here. Once again, it's on a state highway. I'll let Jason talk about his business, but we're excited about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is bringing a brand new business to Shiawassee County, actually from out of state, from Ohio. So as I joke with him, bringing some Buckeye money to Michigan, but also supporting a major industrial employer we have here now, Crest. And I'll let him talk about that as well. So, once again, to echo Pete, it's a very small parcel. There's very limited ability to do anything with it. They've offered these conditions. In addition, keeping the buffering, the lighting down. They want to be good neighbors. So I think the fact that they're offering to do that, plus the fact, it's where development should be, bringing new economic growth here, we certainly encourage your support. So, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Justin? Jason?
My name is Jason Gardner. I'm the owner of Custom Transporters and SFM Leasing. We specialize in pontoon hauling, boat hauling. We haul for about a dozen different manufacturers around the country. Crest Pontoons is our bread and butter. They've recently been purchased by Mastercraft, so they have issues of getting boats off the lot before the end of the month, be able to hit their numbers. They have a certain quota that they have to hit every month. This lot will allow us to be able to bring the boats from Crest Pontoons down to the new yard to be able to be stored and to be loaded onto the trucks. You might have seen my trucks run around town. We actually drive a Dodge 5500, and we put a boat over top of the cab of the truck. So that it's definitely well seen when we go down the road. We're kind of known for that. So pretty much this is in support of Crest, just to be able to help them hit their numbers, to be able to keep up with production. With the way that transportation is highly regulated, it will also help my drivers be able to stay on the road, to be able to get back in time. Pretty much we're limited for Crest being only Monday through Thursday now. They're working 410s. This gives us the opportunity to be able to load on Fridays and over the weekends. I have extra trailers that would actually be stored there at Crest. So those trailers would actually get loaded during business hours. Then the last boat that will go over the cab of the truck will actually be shuffled down to my yard. That's where the drivers would be able to load whenever they come in, to be able to get out of there and turn and burn. That is pretty much the majority of it.
I have a question for you, and I believe we asked this at the planning commission, but if you could answer it again. Did you look at other properties?
Yes.
And what made this piece most attractive for you?
The proximity to Crest, closest, just to be able to have the least amount of issues going from, there's other staging yards that other manufacturers have that are an hour down the road. For the numbers that Crest is looking at, potentially having me shuffle boats down there, it's more of time of the essence, the least amount of opportunity for issues. We did look at a place down in Perry. It had a lot of restrictions on it as well.
Is that in the city or in the township?
Township.
Okay.
And it was also there on the main road. It also had a lot of restrictions as well, but it was only an acre of property, and pricing as well went into consideration on that side.
And this acre and a half, this is like the ideal size. You said that was too small. 4 or 5 acre parcel in an industrial park would be too big, or?
With all the setbacks, because I thought an acre and a half seemed like a pretty decent piece of property. Starting looking at all the setbacks off the right of ways, being a corner lot. Ideally, I would like to have a corner lot, being based right off of the state route, just because you guys get a lot of snow and weather. Those are the first roads that are going to be touched around here, so that was really what made it the ideal property. The proximity to Crest, and the fact that it's because as weird as it sounds, our boat hauling, we're actually in our slow time right now. Here in about September is when it actually really starts to pick back up. From September all the way to the Memorial Day weekend is our busy season. So if the dealers don't have their boats by the Memorial Day weekend, they start canceling their orders. From Memorial Day weekend to the 4th of July weekend is usually all retail sold boats, all the boats that customers custom ordered. Once the 4th of July weekend hits, if they don't have their boats, they cancel their orders. Because if they wait another month, then they end up getting the next model year. So we work with Crest as far as moving into their dealer meeting. We shuffled 30 boats 30 miles down the road to Lansing Center for all the dealers to come in and be able to help purchase their boats. We're the only ones that actually help out the competition that comes in and hauls their boats. They don't do hands-on. So my drivers help the loading, the unloading. We help stage things, where our competition, they just show up, hook onto a trailer, and they drive away. So Crest has relied on us to be able to help move into their dealer meetings as well.
Any questions for Mr. Gardner?
One couple more things if I can throw in there. So we're not looking at having any permanent staff that's going to be there at all. So we're not looking for water, we're not looking for sewage. The only thing that we're looking for would be electrical for the overhead crane. So there will not be any permanent employee there on the property. Majority of the time that this property will be used will be the last week of the month. I personally will be coming up here to shuffle the boats from Crest down to the staging yard, just so that I can make sure everything goes smoothly. But there will be no permanent employee on the property. So the majority of the time, the property will sit vacant until the end of the month, because that's the push for what Crest needs.
Any questions for J.C. Gardner? Okay. Any other discussion before we vote on moving this to Wednesday's committee vote? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes and moves on to Wednesday, committee of the whole. Agenda item number 6, other agenda items. Does anybody have anything? Hearing none. Item 7, call to the public. And next item 8, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair? I believe you have some folks over here that are called the public.
Okay, you need to fill out slips, like I said at the beginning of the meeting. Turn them
Do you want to go on?
in. Yeah, I mean, we can go back to that and just, you have to fill out the slips and turn them into the clerk, and we'll call each one of you. Okay, we have 2 individuals. We'll start with, is it Craig Killian? Yep. Okay. You can just come up here to the table. You can sit, you can stand, whatever you want. You have 3 minutes.
All right, I live across the road from the parcel we've been discussing on the east side of M52. My driveway comes out there. That area, that intersection has already in the past been a fairly dangerous intersection. There are a number of people, surprisingly for that road, that have tried to turn on there and caused either a rear end or have gone off the road. I've had several cars that have ended up in I call it my front yard, but my house sits back off the road. I don't know how you can put in a turn lane or anything like that for that piece of parcel or piece of land, since the access would have to be off of Terrell Road, because there's a county drain there that comes underneath that right there at that intersection as well. It will take a bad situation, I think, and make it worse. In addition to the fact that there will be lighting. I don't know there's not very many trees on the parcel right now. It's brush, scrub. So yes, there may be setbacks, there may be buffer. It won't stop lighting, it won't stop noise, it's not going to stop anything like that. We live it's been a rural, residential, agricultural area. Both sides of the street from that point north have been residential for a while. In fact, the individual who lives just north of that parcel offered to buy it. Was told he couldn't buy it because he only wanted to put a barn on it. Now we're rezoning it so that somebody else can put a barn on it. That just does not seem like a very good way to run a business here. So those are my primary objections. The traffic is going to be the biggest one for me. My house sits back. I won't be impacted by noise or lights, but the traffic is a very major concern. Trying to get in and out of my driveway already at rush hour is a very difficult process. So those are my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Pete, if I could ask a question real quick. So what happens? Will there be, does MDOT do a site inspection with this? Is there any?
The access will be off of Tyrell Road, so MDOT was given opportunity to speak as part of the rezoning. When we send out our notifications, however, the driveway permit will only be through the Shiawassee County Road Commission.
Okay, next, William Newman.
Yes. I live almost directly
Mr. Killian's driveway is just to the south of me and my property, so I'm basically just one lot over from that property. So that property, I'm like him. Everything he said, I agree with, along with the fact that traffic, we already have tandem trailer gravel trucks driving up and down Terrell Road that create enough problems. Okay, that is such an issue between that and the traffic alone. Like I said, there's nothing to set in our driveways for 10, 20 minutes to get out at times, especially rush hour mornings, afternoons. And you're gonna add in another tandem type trailers pulling off of a gravel road. There's already 3, 4 people who've been killed between there and my driveway. And I've been there 46 years. I did not move there with the idea of having a business end up right across from me. Not that I care about his business that much, that's not the issue. The issue is, I didn't plan on having a business across from my house all these years. And I don't think any of the other neighborhood, we've all been there. Most of that neighborhood has been there as long as I have. Some of them been there longer than I have. And it's just, seems out of place, like I said, that I know the same thing. There's been questions, I know the person's been trying to buy that property for years. And he tried to do it by the book and come over and get permits and whatnot. First, with the idea, he told everybody up front, if I buy it, I want to put a barn on it, but I'm not going to buy it if I can't put the barn on. Well, then they turn around and now they're trying to accommodate this way. So we feel kind of shunned a little bit here, that we're being not really considered in any way as, you know, the people out there in the community is basically what we have. There's 20 homes up and down that section. And the farmland on the other side of Terrell Road there, that belongs to a family that owns buku acres. They got about 1,000 acres they operate there. So I'm still, my biggest concern too is like him. There's a lot of issues there with drainage that's all involved, along with a lot of heavy traffic is there already. We don't need to add any more.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Next, is it Renee Toth or Toth? Toth, apologize. Another neighbor, we're going right down the highway, it looks like here.
Yep, I am 2 doors north of Mr. Newman. I can't really say it's my house. I take care of my parents, they're elderly. I live there. We've been there, my parents have been there 48 years. They're both in wheelchairs, and I am transport for both of them. And let me tell you, when you're dealing with wheelchairs and elderly and waiting 20 minutes to get out of the driveway, hoping that you make it on time for a doctor's appointment, it's very hard. Traffic is horrible. We have had a lady motorcyclist end up dead in our driveway from an accident. Multiple deer and car accidents through there. It's nothing to find dead deer in your driveway in the morning. It's just a very bad area. And Mike McComb, who they were talking about, did try to buy the property. He tried to do it all legal and was told no, he would have to put a house on there, not just a pole barn. So it's kind of odd that Mike couldn't do it, but these guys can. It's just, all these years that everybody's lived there, over 40 years, it's always been residential. The closest thing we really had was down to Grand River, and that was a little store years ago, and now I think that's empty. But it's always been residential. I just don't see how this is going to help. In fact, I think it's going to make it worse with the traffic. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, with that, I'd make adjournment. Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn. Pass this to John.
Yes, sir.
meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Call to the public. Do we have anyone that would like to speak at this time? If not, then we'll move right on to item number 4. Need a motion to consider the formal requests of the State 911 Committee, SNC, for the immediate return of $458,913.30 in MERS pension funding that was overassessed from the Shiawassee County 911 Fund in previous budget years.
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
Not for me.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a lot to say on this issue, so we'll let you guys go first.
Okay, so we're considering this. Does this mean, what exactly does that mean this week? That we're just gonna talk about it, or we're gonna vote on it, do it all at once?
Well-
That's what's on the agenda.
Yeah, I think it means the immediate return, I mean,
Yeah.
Thursday.
All right, so I'm gonna take the floor if you'll allow, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great.
$458,913.30. I understand that this is an issue that's brewed over 20 years. A mistake that was made a long time ago, and over a number of years, it has ballooned into this. Now, obviously, $450,000 is a lot of money for us. It is budgeted. We put it in there when we budgeted money last year. I remember Chairman Root and I made sure that it was in there. Tomorrow, we're going to have a meeting. I believe it's 9 a.m. Hearing a MERS issue, and the rumors and the words I'm hearing now is we could be looking at a $2.5 million shortfall per year for MERS. If that number's correct, we don't know yet. But we're in crisis.
We're looking at an increase in the
3
amount of
times
money
over.
that is
Right.
contribution.
In our,
Yeah.
which could
Our
be
yearly
No, up from last year, it
$16
would
million
be about,
budget. If that,
yeah,
we
that's
won't,
right.
we don't know, we won't know till tomorrow. But here's the deal. That's crisis mode. What is 2.5 out of $16 million in the budget?
Big percentage.
Good chunk of percent.
it could be as high as, it could be as high as 4.5 million.
4.5
4 million is probably,
per year.
well, this next year probably 4 million.
Okay. Now here's where I wanted to go with this. 20 years to make this problem. But yet we have a request on our agenda to pay it back in full the month after we get the numbers settled. When this took 20 years to create as an issue, they want it all back. My question first is, why is this even on our agenda? Was it implied that we weren't going to pay them back at all? That committee needed to vote in order to ask for their money back, that we know we owe them and we will be paying them back? And secondly, I'm not so sure it seems reasonable, based on some of the homework I've done, to pay them back in full. Yes, we budgeted the $1 million, I think is what we put in, because we didn't know how it was going to go. But that was before we knew we had this kind of shortfall coming down the pipeline we'll know more about tomorrow. That could be absolute crisis mode for this county. And guaranteed statewide numbers. We're about to be in the media. And so what are we going to do with the 450? Why not wait to the end of the year when we do our budget and we budget this back in increments so we know that we're giving it a reasonable amount each. They're going to get the money back. And if you're worried about whether they're going to run out of money, here's where I've done my homework. The 911 surcharge that was on the ballot for voters in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, raised the 911 surcharge to the absolute highest allowable amount that they could charge by law. And we voted yes. It was a narrow margin, but it was voted yes. Of course, it was billed to the people, the voters, that you need to pass it, or else first responders may not show up to your house if we don't get this through. You need to pass this for your first responders. And second, that this was for mandatory equipment that they needed. It was going to be statutory equipment that they weren't going to be able to afford unless we passed that surcharge up to the highest allowable amount. Now, my understanding is that equipment is still not statutorily mandatory, nor do we own it in this county. But here are some numbers that I do have. Number one, before I took the board, we were looking at buying, moving the 911 facility out here or building them a new property. So here were the numbers. To build a new facility, approximately 1.15 million. So 1,150,000. They said, well, we can't do that. We'll buy this, what was it, the old Red Cross building down the road. We'll buy it for $350,000. We'll fix it up. Approximate remodel costs will be $500,000. Okay, it was 175 we bought it for, right? With remodel costs, according to the documents that I pulled, $500,000. Approximately a $700,000 total cost. Now I want to read you what we have spent so far in total on these buildings. All these documents over here. This is fund balance, right here. Actual building cost, $969,966.51. So $200,000 over budget. $2,084,647.26 on new equipment. That includes computers, that includes furniture for the place, everything else. That's a $3 million facility. And one of the reasons we didn't go to building a new facility is because it could cost upwards, and I have this right in front of me, before I took office, it could cost over $2 million, they said. Well, we're at 3 now, $3 million. In that time, we've given raises to people in that department. We've talked about making it a separate entity, and now we owe them $450,000 more that they didn't have budgeted for. They're going to get that money back. Now let me read you, as of the beginning of this year, January 1st, their fund balance was $1.335 million. That's what they have in the bank above and beyond operation cost. That's just in their bank. No other department has that kind of fund balance, I assure you. But here's the kicker. From January 1st to today, 8 months, their new fund balance is $2,101,186, increasing at nearly an exponential rate at this highest allowable amount of surcharge that they're collecting. They want their money back right now, $450,000, which would bump them up to $2.5 million plus in fund balance. And by the end of the year, it'll even be higher. This is an unacceptable situation that we find ourselves in. Now, I'm not saying that we don't owe them the money. Yes, we do. But I wanted to shed some light on what's happening in that department. And I'm not saying Angela Norling was taking over from what was going on. I remember hearing before I took office, the old sheriff, Walt McPherson, would come on, you better make it a separate entity. They need to be a separate entity. Why? We didn't allow it. And here we are over budget on buildings. They have a $3 million fund balance probably by the end of the year at the rate they're going, if we pay them back their money. So I don't see why it's sensible to pay them back the $450,000 instantly right now, because they certainly do not need that money. And in addition to that, by the end of this agenda and other agenda items, I'm going to be talking about adding to discussion for Wednesday whether we ought to consider lowering that surcharge back to pre-2016 levels. Because it doesn't look to me like the taxpayers ought to be paying a per cell phone charge that's the highest allowable per law, in my understanding, as they are. They don't need that money. This is getting outlandish, and it started before I took office, and here we are. So those are my facts, and those are why I'm voting no. They're going to get their money. We ought to do it sensibly. We ought to budget it in under a consent. Maybe we do it quarterly. They'll get their money back. They don't need it right now. They're not going to shut down. We need to have some real heart-to-heart talks about what we're going to do with the 911 department, because this is a big problem. And we've got an even bigger problem coming down the pipeline. It's time to manage our money wisely, like we have said that we were going to do when we took office. And that's all I have to say.
Would you like to table this motion to another day?
I will be voting no if we don't table it. It's up to you two. It's just a committee meeting. I would, like I said, I would love to see us say, let's pay them back $50,000 quarterly or something sensible. Tell me no tomorrow how bad this really is.
Now that we know that they certainly have sufficient funds to operate.
They're going to be operating just fine.
And also sufficient funds for their MERS contribution this year.
Right, they're going to be up to about 80% funded.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have a comment also. I have sat on the 911 board for over 2 years. And I don't necessarily think it's the 911 department, but that board certainly holds some responsibility. There are board members that have been on there for years, and many of the years when this was going on. So that happened on their watch. And what really irritates me is when the chairman of that 911 board accuses this county, this board of commissioners, that we are stealing money from 911. I've seen it on the front page of the newspaper. I've heard him say it, that this board has stole money from 911. That's bullshit. We did not steal money from them. So before we vote on that, let's make it very clear that no one stole the money from 911.
The new chairman, the old chairman wasn't reappointed because of this.
Because of that, right?
Yeah, Dan. Okay, so it's a formal request, and maybe this was in the packet for the finance committee. Was this a letter they sent us, the state 911 committee?
Yes,
And then,
they are kind of demanding it by September 2nd.
and if we don't?
Then they would turn it over to the Attorney General. I've discussed with commissioners what could happen because of that. I'll be glad to discuss it with you. I'd rather not discuss it.
Can I just make a couple comments? One is that I noticed in the letter from Yo and Yo, and I understand there's been an issue with MERS for 20 years, but this $458,000, $913.30 is calculated on a spreadsheet. This began in 2017, so this is not the 20-year problem. These payments, if you look at the spreadsheet from the accountant, they have a very laid out where the overages were to come up with that total, and that began in 2007.
Well, that's what it failed to show was, and what we asked for over and over, who's responsible for this? Who was responsible for this 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago?
But you're talking
Yes,
about 20 years of unfunding a
It
division.
just triggered, it just got triggered a couple of years ago. But this was mismanagement, people were putting the wrong things, and this has been going on for 20 years. It just fell below and triggered everything in 17.
People being in the wrong categories is one issue, but then the amount that was taken from 911, this variance of payments every month, sometimes 90,000, sometimes 70,000, that's a 2017 to 2019 problem.
Well, because people were put in because you had
Right.
more people taking out money than putting money in some of these divisions. Yeah,
Right.
and that's what triggered it. But it goes back to, it is a 20-year problem.
But look at the division. If I'm paying the bills and I'm looking at a division that is labeled 911 Central Dispatch only. Only. If I'm looking at that as a budget person or a finance person, and that goes triggered below its standard, what it's supposed to be, and the costs come in, no, I don't feel we need to start overcharging everyone else in the county for their MERS. 911 Central Dispatch only. So yes, the payments got triggered and went to it, but I mean, that's a clerical error. I mean, I mean, anyone in this room, if you looked at a division that said 911 Central Dispatch only, would you assume sheriff's deputies, corrections officers, and 911 people were in there, and lieutenants were in there? No, you would not think that. You would think only our 911 employees, and that's why the charges were sent to 911. So as far as looking into why, and when it was raised, when the question was raised, whoa, why are we getting these astronomical charges on it? That's when the investigation started. That's when it was, wait, why is it? That's when it started with who's in these divisions. And that's why this whole thing, I mean, we've been paying MERS all the way up until 2017 with no thought, no care, no nothing. And it only started in 17, so we actually started looking at what we're paying, who's in what, and who's paying for what. So the charges, yes, were from 17, but this is a problem that's gone on for years and years and years and continues to go on because we're not funding the right divisions with the right amount of money.
I feel like after reading the numbers, like we just went through, like the new building, we're talking about malfeasance or misfeasance here. What's going on? How can you be that much over budget on things? This does not pass the smell test to me. It certainly won't my constituents.
I had this argument, Mr. Holzhausen had this argument back in 16, and we were laughed at. We were told the voters voted for it. I think we were the only ones that voted against it, and it all went through. So I mean, I know where you're coming from, and I understand it, but I feel like I've done this I did it 3 years ago. Said the same thing, except I said where we're going to be, not where we were right now. You now have all the facts of where it actually went, which was what Commissioner Holzhausen and I were afraid was gonna happen.
Okay, we've discussed it again. May I make a, yeah, I agree.
I'm not on the board, but I've been here a long time, and when they come over here and said it's gonna cost so much to put a building up, I mean, to fix it and everything, I just said that, I don't know, it looks like to me it could cost over $1 million, and everybody laughed at me, but it does. And things do overrun. We had to move it out of the jail, we had to get fiber optic, it can't shut down, we had to move things, and everything overruns, but, you know, that's the way things happen. Just like all their money back right away, and I think they're doing good, so I think we ought to just pay it back shortly. But that's, I'm not on the board, so Wednesday when everybody votes on it.
I would make a recommendation that in this motion, we would strike the word immediate out of the motion. And this will be our formal designation that yes, we do owe the money, but it certainly gives us a lot more wiggle room as to see what our liabilities for MERS is going to be in next year and the preceding the next few years. Also, it'll give us time to figure out what we can afford in payments back, so on and so forth.
Or what the Attorney General tells us we may have to do.
Yeah, but,
We may not like it.
I think that's a good suggestion, John.
okay. So, we had a motion with the motion that we had today. When the maker of that motion agreed to take out the word immediate and then move it to Wednesday.
Yes, I would amend that motion.
And I was the second to that motion, so I will concur. So at this time, is there any other discussion?
I would just like to know one thing by Wednesday, if we could find out who it was that felt the need to send this to us or request that 911, state 911 send this to us. Was it Angie Norling? Was it the sheriff? Who was it that asked
This
that
is,
this be sent?
this is from Harriet Rennie Brown, she's the state 911.
Well, I know she is, and I get that she's responding to some request as to what the deficiency in the fund was. So who was it that lobbied this immediate, basically it's a threatening letter, do this or we're gonna turn you over to the Attorney General. So what I wanna know is, who was it? Because I don't think this board ever made any kind of suggestion that we weren't gonna pay it. We didn't say, I even quoted in the paper saying we're gonna pay it by year end. We're gonna work to pay it by year end. So I don't know where it came from that we needed a threatening letter. I agree with Commissioner Marks. Why is this on here? We know, we talked about this last month, what we knew. We were all kind of a sigh of relief that this was the number and not a lot higher. So I mean, my question is, I wanna know who.
It was probably
Who put
put
it on the
forward
agenda?
by Lindsay, well, I put it on the agenda because that was a request from the.
From who, though? That's.
Well, that was from the 911 board, I was at the meeting.
They put in an agenda request?
No, they asked that this be on the agenda, so we put that on just like we do normally.
In the meeting,
But-
in the meeting,
Yeah.
3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever.
I was at the 911
Yeah,
meeting.
so was I.
I didn't see it. I'm on the board. I never
So
heard that.
I.
It's all new to me.
It was discussed.
If it was
It was a
discussed,
special meeting mostly to discuss that.
Well,
I must
And we
have
said-
lost.
We said we're
I
aware
didn't-
of it.
I didn't hear it.
Well, we have to address it.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, yeah, we have to
I
address
just wanna know who sent who pushed them to send the
Commissioner,
threatening
it
letter.
probably came from Lindsay Stevens, the state 911 compliance officer. Harriet Rennie Brown would be her supervisor. And she had pushed kind of aggressively for immediate repayment. But that said, I mean, we do.
Yeah, that's not what's our
It comes under the rule that these funds can only be used to fund 911, and to the extent they were overcharged, they were used for other purposes.
All right. Anyway, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. It moves on to Wednesday. Thank you for a very spirited conversation, by the way. Item number 5, motion for the replacement of an existing main server unit at a cost of $7,101 as part of the IT department's 5-year rotation plan, and to complete the virtualization of some remaining standalone servers.
So moved.
Support.
There's a motion, and a second, and discussion, and I see the, where is she? There she is. Yeah, do you want to comment on this at all?
This will just allow us to replace an older piece of equipment, like we said, we want to virtualize. That's going to help with the load balancing of some of our other servers. So if we have one server that has all these virtual servers that go down, then they'll move over to another one to keep us up and going until that server gets replaced.
Yeah.
I mean, so my question for a lot of these agenda items moving forward are gonna be similar. This was not budgeted for, in my understanding, in our current budget, right?
Well, there's
Is
hardware
this
costs in
coming
the
out of
current budget. I don't know where, Tracy's still here. I don't know where that
Where it
would
falls.
be immediately, but there's amounts that are budgeted for hardware improvements throughout the year. Yes, this.
Those are the
I don't
kinds
know.
of things I'm gonna have to start knowing, because it's very difficult for me, knowing that after hearing, I was upset with a $2.5 million shortfall per year forever. Hearing the $4.5 million number is very difficult for me now to look at any of these agenda items and anything outside our budget and say, good idea, let's pay the money. Is this something that could potentially wait, or is this something that we really do need to do?
Let us, yeah.
We should move forward with it, let's put it that way. We have 2 servers that are there that right now that are on operating systems that are going to be end of life support by the end of the year. So we need to do something there. So then this right here is just going to help us. We had planned for this, we had budgeted for it, and we had talked about it last year, saying we're going to wait for another year to get another server into the rotation. So yes, we had budgeted for it.
Honestly, we almost need to send a letter from the board to our department heads and tell them, tractors, trucks, things like that, until we get a grip on what we owe and what our what next year's budget's going to look like. Perhaps we ought not to be bringing things to the board that are above and beyond what's budgeted for. Or we could be seeing layoffs in this county. I'll just go ahead and say it because no one wants to say it, but I'll say it out loud. That's what we're staring at right now. And no one wants to do it, but it's certainly an absolute reality. $4 million, possibly. I know that you just threw that number out there, out of a $16
I'm just saying
million.
that's probably gonna go to MERS next year. That doesn't mean the budget's gonna be over by that much. I mean, I'm just saying.
This is unfathomable to me that we would ever have to deal with such a thing whenever I took office 2 terms ago. I don't like it. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, motion to approving up to $6,640 to remove and replace the compressor and dryer core of one of the air conditioning units at the district court building.
So moved.
Support.
There's a motion and support, discussion. I think we've talked about this. I know Tim's around. I think we discussed it last month when it broke down.
Well, yeah, one of the compressors went bad at the district court there at Hanworth, and it didn't smoke it, so it's not as bad as it could be. But it failed mechanically, and my understanding, about 10 years old. At one point, they wanted to replace 2 of them because it would be under warranty. But I talked to a couple different places, and they said, why would you, chances are, if it goes down again, it's not going to be under warranty anyway. So you're half the amount just to replace one compressor, and there would be no harm to the other one. And that's why they want to replace the dryer core, because it's kind of like a filter for the Freon. It keeps the water out.
Is it going to work? I mean, are we going to be back here in 2 months and the thing's dead again, or next summer?
No.
It didn't work.
Well,
It was a nice ditch effort, but
No, this is one of 4 compressors that operate that unit.
It's 1 of 4.
One of the 4. And I can't guarantee that another one might not go down the road. I mean, you have no guarantee. There's no sign of what, I mean, it didn't fail electrically. It failed mechanically, which is better, because had it failed electrically and smoke would have got into the Freon, or they're saying that all the Freon would have then had been replaced also for the whole unit. So it's not as bad as it could have been, but who knows what took it out. It just failed mechanically. Everything checks electrical on it, so they only have to just replace the one. But usually, as a general rule, they'll replace two because the units work in tandem. And a lot of times what happens is when the one goes, materials go into the second one and take that one out also. That's why they won't, let's say that if one went down again on that same thing, they wouldn't warranty the one that we got because we didn't replace two of them. But everybody that I've talked to so far says that it's not worth replacing two of them, it should just replace the one.
Okay.
I appreciate that, because last month I was an absolute no.
Well, that's the thing. Is there anyone else we can go with? I see like this is Johnny Green again.
Well,
Why do we keep?
I have other
service?
bids out there. Johnny Green was the first one to get back the bids. It could go lower. I'm trying to get a couple more bids in, but this would be the highest would go be. If someone comes in lower, I'd be more than happy to take them. But I'm still waiting for a couple bids to come back. This was the first one we've got in, but the other ones might be higher. And I'll tell you right now, it's really not Johnny Green's fault what happened to the other one. It was a different one. So, and we're gonna deal with that also.
I can tell you how unhappy I'm gonna be if we see anything like this on the agenda again, this or the rest of next summer. Because it's just ridiculous.
Well, even Johnny Green said it was ridiculous. You know, it shouldn't happen.
But it is.
Well, I'm talking about the previous one, not this one. There was no telling on this one. This is just,
Mechanically, it
yeah, it fit. And then we had no air.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Item number 7, motion to approve up to $10,554, $5,277 each to remove and replace obsolete door drives on 2 elevators, Circuit Court and Capitan Building, with new IDD door drives, includes all engineering material and labor.
Make that motion.
Second.
There's a motion second, discussion. Tim, I know we talked about this last month.
Yeah, well, the drives are old on these elevators, they're obsolete. Basically, if one was to go down, let's say one goes down tomorrow at Circuit Court, it's down for 4 weeks. And I think on this one, we better be a little bit preemptive. You know, Captain also, I mean, that might be part of the problem that's going on over there. How many people got out? Larry was stuck in it, a few others, I think 4.
Yeah, there's been 3.
About 4 people. And I don't know if it was because of the door drive or what, but that's another one that needs to be, that they listed that they wanted to replace.
So, okay, so this came to light by the elevator maintenance people or the state who still hasn't done their inspections for 3 years?
The elevator people. And I still haven't got the state. But the problem with the state is, it's the boss that is in our area, the head of it, that hasn't showed up. But I'll give him another call.
I'm making him a call if he doesn't return your call.
But,
You just let me know.
you know,
Okay, any other discussion?
but as far as the elevators are concerned, we're still up to compliance because they've all been maintained by companies like they're supposed to. Logs have been kept, everything's been kept. We've even sent in the money for them. We just haven't seen the licenses yet.
Is there any way we could buy the parts, keep them in warehouse, wait till it goes down and then fix it? We wouldn't have to wait 4 weeks for parts.
I don't think.
Why not ride out the life of this thing and make sure we get as much out of it as we can. Sometimes you don't
I
touch something
don't
that's
know
working.
if that, I don't know if that's possible or not. You've already got people stuck on it.
There's already been people.
Yeah, and remember, this isn't just the parks, it includes engineering and labor.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Now, item number 8. Need a motion to adopt resolution number 19-08-10, pledging the county's full faith and credit to the repayment of the county share, 40%, of the Mystic Creek Inter-County Drain Note, Series 2015, on January 1st, 2020, in the event that the pending bond issue is not completed by that date. We need 2/3 vote required. And now, of course, I would say that vote would be on Thursday.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Of course, we have discussed in this quite, I think we pronounce it correctly now. Mr. Gay. Creek, my discussion, so on and so forth. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on to item number 9. Need a motion to adopt resolution number 19-08-11, pledging the county's full faith and credit for the prompt payment, when due, of the county's share, 36% of the principal and interest schedule of the proposed pending issue of the Mystic Creek Inter-County Drain Bond, Series 2019, for improvements to the Mystic Creek Inter-County Drain. 4 votes required, and again, that would be on Thursday.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Gary?
Yeah, this is finally getting started. I've been going the last 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years at these meetings. It's in my district, and it's been a nightmare.
I think it's been 11 years now. Been going now. I mean, Gary had redder hair and I had blacker hair. So anyway, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moves on Wednesday. Item number 10. I need a motion to authorize $5,000 in matching funds for $25,000 Department of Environmental Quality grant fund to establish 2 permanent locations for conducting monthly electronic waste recycling events.
So moved.
Motion,
Support.
support, discussion.
I feel like we discussed this and we just didn't really get a good feel for what was happening. You weren't here, Melissa, were you?
I was working in Iowa at the time.
Okay.
I was out working in Iowa.
Yeah.
Rick was here and Donna, and we also had Steve Noble from Eagle, or formerly the Department of Environmental Quality. He traveled up to Shiawassee County. Yeah, he was here. He was here on Wednesday.
We didn't know he was here.
He was
That's
here
why
on
we never
Wednesday.
heard.
But he didn't talk.
No, 'cause
No.
we didn't know he was
There
here.
was no questions, so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had submitted, do you want me to speak this time?
Sure.
Do you want to speak, or?
Let me,
Okay, I'll let you
I
speak.
just want to start, as you're considering this from the solid waste management plan, I just want to remind everybody, especially with the things you've already discussed, the funds where this money would come from are not funds generated from taxpayer money. These are funds that are graciously given to the county through waste management for things like these to get done. Recycling, planning's a big part of it. Waste reduction. The purpose was put in the solid waste plan years ago, and I actually negotiated the original contract with this county as the owner of Ennis Park landfill because I seen the need and there was some problems with planning at the time. So that was a 20-year contract, which is over. So when I say graciously, them dollars don't have to come here by law. They're still coming here for these things to happen. Running over budget, we talked about on the last electronic recycling. That's a good thing. That means there's a need. That's why they're doing it. There's a need out there for this, and it is reducing the waste stream. And again, the funds there are there, and they're there for a purpose. Our county solid waste plan has goals set for this county to continue to promote these type of projects. So just keep that in mind when you're considering this forward. Melissa, you can fill in the blanks from here. Just speaking from the solid waste plan, which some of you have said on, I just want them facts out there so we all know where that's coming from and why it's there.
Rick, is that still, is it 75 or is it 80?
It's a minimum 75 was the original contract. And it's based on a tonnage. At the time it was a per yard, but they do a calculation on the tonnage. If their tonnage is higher and it's so much a yard, we get more money. We've had as much as $98,000 a year coming from that fund.
Okay.
But because of the yardage, their yardage is down a little now, so it's that minimum 75.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm here if you have any questions. Sorry about the confusion. We were here on Monday like we were told. I wasn't, but my staff and Rick were. And then on Wednesday we brought the gentleman from Eagle to answer any more in-depth questions. There was miscommunication. I had submitted the grant to Chairman Root and to Commissioner McMasters. Beforehand, I submitted actually 2 of them because we didn't updated it to it after we worked with Steve Noble. So basically, it's a $20,000 grant with a $5,000 match. We're going to set up 2 permanent sites, one at Great Lakes Fusion and use the one that we currently use where the household hazardous waste location is. At the building that the Conservation District wrote the grant back in 2001 for with the community development and the health department. So we're going to use that location for our other one. They suggested to go south and to stay here in Owasso. So we listened to what they said. We had Rick sit in, who is the chair of the Solid Waste Committee. He sat in with Steve Noble. I followed protocol when we were going to do that. I went with the chair of the Solid Waste Committee. We were going to have a meeting with the Solid Waste Committee. Unfortunately, it was such a short time frame that we did not get to do that. So the permanent storage is basically just a metal shed. It's not a building that's going to be anything major. It is, at this time, it's a startup. We're at the process that we've known that we've needed a permanent location, that the satellite collections cost too much. You can't gauge it. You can't, as we know from the many cars that came in, you can't gauge it. You can't have a cutoff. It's just too hard. So with that said, we're going to have each month we'll swap each location with weather permitting. We're not going to do it in January. I hope not. I hope not. But if there's a need and we can get back there or do it, we will do it. And then we'll be able to work with the department to assist us in the best way that we can handle the waste. There's also other grant potentials. Next year they have another grant that they would like us to apply for, so we're looking at that also. Just trying to basically follow the solid waste plan. I know I've told you this before, but conservation districts by law have to do a resource assessment. So every 5 years, by law, the conservation district has to ask the community what's your need. And for the past 20 years, recycling's been right up there. And so my board, as locally elected officials, have to follow what their constituents ask for. And so we have tried to do that, and we took little baby steps. Like we started, we wrote the grant with Jean. For the household hazardous waste. That successful program. We want to do the same thing with electronic recycling. And so that's where the big stream of recycling is really needed right now. You see it.
One of the other discussions that we had, fees. I know that we charge, and the reason is, in the past several years and this year, we have $15,000 coming from the commissioners for e-waste. Mm-hmm. If you're open every month or open 10 months or whatever, depending on weather, then if fees and the monies you receive, if they're all used up, then I guess we don't do any more recycling.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yep. So we can gauge it better. So we will be taking fees. The department has assisted us in developing a fee structure, and we can also gauge that as we move along through the process. They'll be there to help us and guide us. to build a really good program. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Any other discussion?
Just one quick question. So the cost to recycle the e-waste, that fluctuates, correct? Is that part
So
of
we did
the-
for this grant, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, was that part of, but wasn't that part of the problem, not just the
Yes.
volume?
So we did get a contract with a new company that gave us the price for our 2-year grant. So we put that into our budget too with the department's grant. Yep, so we're with a new person. And that is another thing that when you do satellite collections, it costs so much because they send 4 trucks, maybe you only do 5, or then they send that, and then the next week they come back, or the next Monday they have to send more 2 trucks, so then we pay more money that way. And so that's the fluctuation, is you can never gauge this. This, with a permanent location, when it's stacked and it's finished, we know we're stopping, right? So then they'll come and they can do that. It may be 2 months that they don't. So we have a quote from them for the 2 locations to pick up, which they won't do it each month. We'll wait, we'll fill this location, we'll fill that location, and then they'll come every 2 months, if need be. If we don't fill up that location, or we don't, we can keep moving along.
Thank you, that brings a lot of clarification.
Also makes your planning a little better.
Yes.
Because
And we will have the assistance of the department to assist and help us.
maybe those giant TVs will all be gone in 10 years.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
We see a lot more LCD, the big, or not the ones, because they
Oh,
don't
the
last
projector
long.
ones?
Yeah, well, no, we see LCDs, is that what they're called? We see those now because they only last about 3 years, so you get them at Christmas in about 3 years, and you're picking them up, right? So, also, I did want to state, I had heard there was a question about how we're going to spend those funds. The Conservation District, as you know, gets audited. Since I've been the executive director since 2006, we have had, my board has had a clean audit, no deficiencies found, and that all has to go to our overseeing agency, which is the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development. So since that time, we have had not one deficiency in our audits. They look at every line item of our budget. They look at every grant they pull up. I have to supply every single grant. They go through and they make sure that I'm in every line of those grants. So conservation districts are looked at with a magnifying glass. So with their
I think our
grants.
question, Melissa, was more to, at least in my opinion last month, was how are we gonna build 2 permanent structures for 25? Not how you guys were gonna spend the money. I
Right.
think that's where the question was.
So just, so when we said a permanent structure, we're
Yeah,
not,
so
it's
we're
not
up
the
here
Taj,
thinking,
yeah,
how
Taj
do we
Mahal.
build 2 buildings for
And we have to do a
Yeah.
cinder block.
No, so it's just like the little, it's just, so at this time, as we're starting out the program, it's just going to be like those steel, the steel, I think they're called steel shelter. And so, because basically all we do is we need to have a cover over the electronic waste, so that no rain gets in there, there's no runoff, all of that. And then if we, want to set them on, as we look forward, if we get some volunteers or we get people that want to assist us, and we can put a cement underneath it, then, we will. But at this time, it's not, we're just going with that building. It's a start out.
I have a question. What's the time frame, like the deadline for the grant, and what's the?
So I've already
the
submitted,
award?
I already submitted the grant.
And when do you know if you get awarded?
September.
Okay.
I submitted the grant without the 5,000 match. What we did is the department came back and said to me that at this point, what you do is you just raise the fees on the people that use it. Unfortunately, that's unfortunate. So what we had to do is we had to take money that would be used for the contracting, for the fees on the recycling with our consultant or contractor. So we had to lower that, and we used the $3,500 in fees, extra fees that we would charge people to do that. At that point, we had no choice. The department said to move forward. They felt that they wanted to see that. So with the $5,000 match, if you would like to provide that, that only bumps up the collection fees. So basically, it would be the $15,000 that you already have, that you already provide for the recycling. So it'd be $2,500 a year That's 17.5. With the grant, they give us 7,500. That's $25,000 total, which is pretty much the same as Larry gets for his household hazardous waste. And with the grant, would be supplying 7,500 of that.
Any other discussion?
No, that's certainly a lot more information.
I apologize. Work took me away, so.
You watched the corn grow there?
There was a lot of corn, and my directors all wanted me to take pictures of it, and I did.
Okay. Anyway, without any more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Rick and Melissa. Your staffs. Okay. Item number 11. Need a motion to authorize the quarterly disbursement to Mid-State Health Network in the amount of $48,266.50 from Shiawassee County in accordance with Public Act 2 of 1986, Alcohol Convention Facility or liquor tax funds, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? This is a routine motion we do every year. I was here in 1986 when this went into effect. So it tells you how old I am. Anyway, okay, without any more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 12. Motion to authorize Commissioner Marks to attend the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio Regional State Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. on October 3 and 4 of 2019. Note, this is for travel expenses only. There is no charge for the conference.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
This money is already budgeted. Obviously, it's not coming out of general fund, or I'd have to vote no on it myself after my rants today. We're gonna go down there and try to remind the White House that Shiawassee County is the kind of county that he's made promises to, and we're hoping to see some of them come fulfilled here. So they need to hear it from us, and we'll represent.
Sometimes at these conferences, I know that Cindy and Marlene and I are going to the MAC conference, and a lot of times there's all sorts of networking you do, and you meet some of the right people and what they do and how they get things done. It's very valuable to go to these conferences.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. The last time we went to DC was very informative. Got to network with all the other county commissioners from Michigan. It's well worth it. It's well worth going. And
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Other agenda items? Again, call to the public, if someone would like to
Mr.
speak.
Chair, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I've got a list here.
okay.
One, going back to 911. I would like to add, if you guys are willing, to the agenda Wednesday discussion item, discussing whether we ought to consider lowering the 911 surcharge. And I know we're doing this without the 911 board even having the chance to say their say. They can come here and have their say too. But based on the numbers that we have compiled, I think it's time we discuss lowering the surcharge, taking the burden off the taxpayers. They obviously do not need the money. In fact, they have almost 500,000 coming to them that they didn't know they had coming to them when they passed this issue. We need to start looking at what we can do to alleviate our taxpayers. And this is just a baby step, I think, in the right direction. I would like to add that to the agenda Wednesday as a discussion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe the following month, they can have this discussion at their meeting. And perhaps by September, we come back and decide whether we want to put it on the ballot and let the people decide.
Okay. Very good. And all the other things that go along with that.
And we'll also have more of an understanding tomorrow of what really we're looking at. And I would caution, when we go to rate people, we don't know until tomorrow what we're looking at. So we maybe hold off on certain numbers. We will know tomorrow. I'm hoping to God it's less damaging than we're fearing.
What is the meeting tomorrow?
It's
Is
a
that,
phone call with MERS, Mike's having.
okay, who's participating or who should be, or?
I'll be there. I'll be there.
I'll be
Commissioner Klein,
participating.
I
Commissioner
think
Martin.
every single commissioner should probably show up if they can make it.
Can't do
Can't
that.
do with the forum?
Yeah.
Well, then they don't need to be,
Unless it's
I
just
mean, I won't
informational.
go if someone wants to go, I'll stay.
So will somebody send an email, or will
Can't
you
do
let us
that either.
know, sort of some notes from them?
We'll have to talk about it.
This wasn't a meeting, first. This is a telephone conference because the sheriff had specific questions. The
Okay.
sheriff's deputies, well, in command, is a very high one too, are being hit with the 3 times minimum, and it has to do with being able to make a budget and items like that, and maybe there's something we can do to alleviate the 3 times minimum charge. That's what it's about. It's not a global thing about MERS in general.
Maybe we need to have one of those too.
Well, good.
So
You can have them come here if you want,
I think that would be a good idea, yeah.
down the road, but I mean, this thing tomorrow is just about,
Okay.
understanding why, and we'll have a report tomorrow. We have regular meetings tomorrow. We'll have an update. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
And once again, I'd like to know who screwed this up 20 years ago, that we're dealing with this mess now. So maybe we'll have another audit.
Yes, okay.
All right, I have
Okay,
number 2.
Brandon.
Didn't know what agenda this would go on, so we're just gonna go ahead and talk about it while we're on finance, and this is concerning the road commission. It's been something we've talked about for 2 months now. You know, I was unfortunate, I had to read in the newspaper that I had to do my homework, and I can assure you I do my homework. And one of the issues that was brought forward, and I don't wanna get into the weeds on some of these issues, but I will defend myself from what was said in the Shiawassee Independent. And that, you know, Mark needs to do his homework. The directors paid 8 out of 10 out of all of the directors in our region. Well, when you look at the region, we're looking at like Ingham, we're looking at like Livingston County, a region that we're the tiny guys in. And it just so happened that it is my understanding that the 2 directors that are paid less than ours has high school diplomas and they don't even have degrees. So that makes sense to me. So when you look at it that way, that would be my defense. He's not paid it, he's not underpaid. I don't want to hear it for counties of our size. And secondly, when they say, well, he's only got 1 year left on his contract. So to say that the last 3 years, he's up in his MERS, his retirement, he's only got 1, well, you know what, I'll eat my words if his contract's not renewed for another 2 to 3 years at the end of this year, which is coming up. Trust me, he'll be renewed. I know. And so that said, that was me defending myself. This is me making a motion to add to the agenda for Wednesday that we expand the road commission to 5 seated members and that we seat those members according to their statutory timeframes because we do have to stagger them. I feel that the road committee, I looked it up, the road commission budget apparently as of 2018 is $13,258,796.35. So over a $13 million budget. We're obviously overseeing, and they have a 3-person board, which means it only takes 2 votes, 2 people to decide on how 13 million is spent. Well, we have I simply feel that adding 2 more seats to that road commission will add an extra layer of accountability and transparency. And I also recommend, this is a side note, because it's not going on the agenda, I recommend moving the meetings from, what is it, 9 a.m., 7 a.m., to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that's, no one's coming. The public's not going to come. And I want the road commission to know that one of the reasons why this is an issue is because as a commissioner, I've taken a significant number of calls. I would say up to 1/3 of my phone calls that I take as a commissioner have to do with the roads. How come this wasn't mowed? Or we got potholes here. This, dirt road hasn't had its application, or it's a washboard and it's ruining my car. What are you going to do about it? And I can tell them, well, you need to call your road commissioners. But when they hang up the phone, they think, well, that son of a gun passed the buck. He lied. I'm never voting for him again. Right? That's what they think. So we take the front line of the calls, and people are mad at us, and we have to pass the buck. We need to let people know that the road commission's a separate entity, and that they're the ones that are in charge of the roads. We have nothing to do with the roads. But we can add an extra layer, another 2 people that maybe they could give phone calls to and go at 7:30 at night about their roads.
Okay. We certainly can add that, just board of commissioners. I would just say that before we do that, we need to have a public hearing.
Oh, yeah, we would have to.
Discuss it.
Well, this would just be discussion, but yeah, we'd have to, Thursday, maybe in our discussion Wednesday, we would
And it does
decide
take
if
a
we want
28
public.
day, it does take a 28-day posting for a public hearing to have individuals come in and share their opinion on the matter. So it's not just a simple move forward, make the motion and move forward, so, but, yeah.
Yep, I just wanted on this discussion for Wednesday and see what the board, see what your guys' feel is. I have one last agenda item.
Can I just say something on that real quick? The idea of there was a lot of discussion on the fact that the county gave raises and the county, went through a wage study, and we certainly did. It had been 20 years since we had addressed wages and looked at wages, and I think the last time that I can think, it's been at least 10 years since our prosecutor received a raise. 'Cause I know that was the thing. Brent Freeze received a $10,000 raise. Dina Finnegan received a $16,000 raise, so it's okay at the county, but it's not okay at the road commission. I would task any individual to find in the last 10 years how many raises have gone to the managing director. And, 16,000 over 10 years in comparison to 10 over maybe 3 is a big difference. But when it's just put out there that Dina gets a $16,000 raise, and it looks like we're just mismanaging our money, throwing out raises, and then criticizing others for giving raises. I mean, I understand the wage study and going through them, they get scrutinized, they're highly scrutinized because it is, it is state, federal, it's tax dollars, and everybody scrutinizes them. We went through a nightmare doing ours, but, ours has been 20 years, and I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that comparing 16,000 to the 10,000 is not the same thing, because and I bet you it's probably even more than 10 years. I would say it's closer to 15 the last time that position received an increase of any kind, and at that time it was probably only like 2,000 or 3,000. But that's just fine.
Yeah, because county employees didn't receive hardly any raises for almost 20 years.
Yeah, well, there was a time when the main electeds went up.
Yeah.
And I don't know the exact year that actually went up.
About 2006.
To the 50,000 where it was at.
I think they were at 42.6 and they went to 50.
And that
45.
so that's
45
so that's more than,
Yeah,
more
45
than
to
10.
50.
Yeah, it wasn't, okay.
That's just why I want to make sure that was comparable, because it looks like we're just throwing around money and then scrutinizing others that are giving it out. And it's like, no, we had to, I was one involved in that wage study, and it was not just throwing around money. It was 20 years of trying to figure out what we can do to get people to stay, and, I hate to keep scrutinizing the wage increase of the managing director. It's just, our people fought to have theirs, and he gets a wage increase every couple of years of his contract. So it's, I just take offense to it when we criticize our wage study that we waited 20 years to go and lost a lot of good employees because we couldn't conduct one or didn't conduct one and didn't really get their compensation on the level that should have been competitively. So that's all.
I understand you hate to criticize. The reason I was scrutinizing it last month is because of the phone calls I've taken.
I take the same.
Why would you give them a raise?
That's the
I
same
didn't.
thing. I take
I'm not
the
on
same
board.
calls, and you're never gonna tell a resident in your community that you represent, I don't take care of the roads.
Right.
I did it one time when I first got on this board. I said, oh, the road commission, yeah, it's a separate entity. The response was, well, what good are you? What do you do? So, it's hard to kind of answer that one. So now you want to take those questions and see how you can help people best you can and try to navigate the channels. And I don't know. It's just, I do have a district that's a little more displeased with the road commission. It's not, that's no secret. I'm the loudest one probably up here as far as what's going on. But, I have people that I have to represent. I have people that have their say and should have their say. And as their representative, it's only fair. Maybe it's not every single person in my district. Not going to say that. Maybe it's not every elected official in my district. But there's a good amount that and there's a lot of them that don't want to just come out and talk about it. And I know Antrim Township has gotten a raw deal as far as services and their ability to work with the road commission because they're vocal, because they come out. But that in turn keeps other townships from wanting to say anything wrong or wanting to speak out publicly. But I'll tell you what, behind the scenes, they will talk to you, and they will tell you what's going on, and they will tell you how they really feel about things. But for fear of, well, I don't want to end up like Antrim Township, you know? I don't want to end up like Bennington Township, you know? I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be put on the bottom of the list, you know? And that's just, you know, so I know it sounds like I'm just really trying to pound this home, but I have people I represent, and they're going to be different than District 7, than District 1, than District 3, than District 2. You know, I mean, they're different. And that's why, you know, I mean, I know it seems like I'm up here just hammering home one point, but I'm picking on people, but I mean, I hear it from my residents, so I'm just relaying, I'm their voice and I'm relaying it for them.
Okay, any other discussion?
And it's nothing against Rick, it's nothing against the board members that
Right.
sit there. And that's the thing that also gets muddied, and people think there's just these accusations. No, I don't agree with the wage for Brent Freeze, but I don't think any of our road commissioners are bad. I don't think they're doing anything bad.
Right.
Their books are fine. We're not questioning that you guys are stealing money. We're not questioning money's being put in wrong areas. Nothing like that at all. It's no disrespect to any of the members on that board.
That's right.
Yeah.
Last agenda item, yeah, I'm not happy to do it, but last month I made a comment and I said that I would bring up the censure of an elected official if that certain individual had not resigned by today. And so we have not received that resignation. I think it's important that we discuss why we're here, how we got here. Things have not improved since a month ago. In fact, my understanding, after talking to Commissioner Garber, is that things have gotten worse. Statutory duties of elected officials must be accomplished. When they are not, then it lands on this board to make sure that the public knows what is going on. Okay? And so that's where we're at. Statutory duties have not been accomplished. We've had to spend county taxpayer money to make sure that they are. And so I would call, and I am moving to come up with language by Wednesday that we would use to file a censure against Tom Dwyer, our county treasurer.
Well, and I would also note, Brandon, that on August 1st, the Department of the Treasury did a site visit in this office for this county. We, as the Finance Committee, were not informed of it, had no knowledge of it, and Tom Dwyer was not there. So, I don't appreciate that. I think we should, number one, been made aware of the fact that the Department of Treasury was coming in here for a site visit.
I'm gonna up the ante.
Is this a normal thing, these site visits?
I don't believe so.
No, it's not good. And if we did
Was
not,
that
as a
surprised,
board,
or did he notify anybody that it was coming?
No,
They told us.
they said they were coming, and they indicated it was just routine. But when they got here, I mean, we filed, at that stage, but when they got here, they said, I mean, we've been, our F-65, which is the audit, has been filed late for 3 years. And
For 3 years.
they were here to, it was basically a form of assistance. The Treasury has some,
if any one of our other elected officials had gone 3 years without fulfilling their statutory duties, I can assure you, we wouldn't have waited 3 years to file censure.
well, he's not responsible for the F-65.
He's been on the board for 20 years. This is a problem.
Yeah,
We
that's
don't
not
make
the
it-
treasurer.
Because what a censure really does is just shows that we disagree with how the office is. There's no punitive measures that'll be taken. If I can't go to my people, when they find out, if something was to happen, okay, especially now that we could have some real financial problems going on, and people will ask too, is that because of the, and it's gonna be so difficult to explain. But what I can't do is go to my townships and my people and say, yeah, here, I didn't say anything, I buried it. People have to know. This is going on. They have to know. This is how it's gotta go. And I'm going to up the ante. And in another month, if things are not improved, I am going to bring forth to this board once again that we petition the governor for his removal from office. So he has another month. And we'll just continue ratcheting this up until we go to town.
And Mike, too, I mean, whether the state was here for the F-65, I still think that when they make a site visit, I don't think it's a social call. I think that the Finance Committee should have been made aware of that. And I think Tom Dwyer, as our elected treasurer, should have at least been there.
Certainly.
I mean,
Commissioner Palmer, at the minimum, should have known, as the chair and finance chair, that was going on. Because then it's, again, goes back to your thing, having to answer questions, and, you know, the treasury was in there, no. You know.
yeah, imagine my surprise.
Yeah, so,
I don't think they stopped by to say hi or bring bacon.
But I mean, it's a three-year problem that, you know, we're all being nice, was started in the treasurer's office. The late filings of our audit is started in that treasurer's office. I've been sitting up here for 3 years defending and saying, we're taking on the responsibility and the burden. We oversee the finances. I've been shouldering that burden on the board of commissioners, and, you know, if you were getting help with something, if you were getting help from someone, it'd be different. It'd be easier to shoulder that burden, to be the one that takes the blame. But when you're getting absolutely nothing in return, after you've made these efforts, you've made efforts to have training in the office, you've made efforts to have people over there to make sure staff is up to speed. And I don't even want to put it all on the staff individually either, because, you know, there's been things that have been put out there and offered, and there's just no wanting to help. There's no wanting to learn or move forward. It's like we're still stuck, that the chief deputy left and we've not moved on. So we're still back in, you know, 3 years ago.
I guess for me, the most alarming part is now we have 3 years in a row that the audit has made recommendations or cites problems that are in the office. In the last 2 years, the treasurer's not been here for the audit report. Last year, didn't even know there was an audit, and I haven't seen them, so I don't even know what was taken on this year's audit is. So I mean, it's not like we're just, I mean, it's documented.
Yeah, I remember last year with the audit, the final paperwork needing to be signed by myself, I believe Mike, and the treasurer, and we had to call Julie. I think Julie was on her way home, and she had to come back to the office to sign for him. So, I mean.
It can't continue.
Can I say something?
Yes. Here
I'm not gonna sit here, as I was a part of that meeting, and we're all gonna be very careful because we all have a lot of respect for Tom. There are issues there, yes, but there were issues at the county level, and that's what they were talking to us about. And we were very, it was a very good meeting, and it also, I mean, in 2017, the county went through some major elected officials and, I mean, major transition financially and otherwise. And some people on this board were not responsible for some of that. And as the transition was coming for the board to start running the finances and everything else alike, I mean, there are issues with our treasurer, yes, but I can't sit here in good conscience and allow the discussion to continue when there's a little
Well, it's a
bit of
good thing that
everybody
you're not on
involved.
this board, and
Well,
so you
yeah,
don't
this
get
is not
stopped.
public comment.
It's not your job. Mr. Chair, I call you to silence. You don't let her talk. That's ridiculous. And she's gonna tell us not to talk at a board meeting. You
No,
just told
that's not
10,000
what I'm
people in
saying.
my district that their representative
That's not what
doesn't
I'm
have a right to
saying.
have an opinion. That
This is not
right.
public comment.
Right. She shouldn't even be allowed to talk. The bottom line is, statutory duties have not been completed. I've called for a censure. I want to vote on it this month.
I'll
seem to
second to
have-
get that on the agenda. Your motion.
And any other
We
elected
can add-
official that
we can-
doesn't do their duty will come too.
We seem to have trouble with what is public comment and what is not.
Well,
So,
we can, other agenda items, if you're finished with your,
I've made my motion.
Okay.
Let's vote on it. I call the question. We can talk about it Wednesday. This is not something I wanted to do.
Motion though, I'm
Yeah, I've moved to censure the man.
Commissioner Root,
Yeah,
you seconded.
Is this to do this or to put it on the agenda?
I put it on the agenda for Wednesday. We have to have language, there's no language, we have to figure out those kind of things.
there's been a motion and a second to add this discussion to Wednesday's committee of the whole. Is there any other discussion at this time? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. It will be brought up again on Wednesday.
That concludes everything I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, committee member. Call to the public. First, Caroline, would you like to continue your comments?
No, I mean,
Okay.
it's not anything, I'm just saying that I sat in that meeting. And so, I mean, it's,
there are issues, but it's not just one person.
The secret meeting that the finance committee wasn't aware of. That
It wasn't secret.
It was from the finance
What
committee,
meeting,
No, it wasn't.
when was this meeting?
August 1st
Of this month?
of this month. This is August 1st.
Basically, they just came and asked, hey guys, when you have your audit late 3 times and the 3rd time was not a.
When they were coming, they didn't even mention that, but when they were here,
Yeah.
they also mentioned that it was an unmodified opinion, they were glad to have that. They didn't actually have it, because that was August 1st. July 31st was when it was submitted, but he didn't have the submitted audit. But he said that when he saw it that it was unmodified, and that the items for corrective action were so far few. There was no material discrepancies. He didn't have any problem with that. He says if it's late, they do want to talk about it.
So basically, the audit for last year was the fact that this Board of Commissioners, the previous Board of Commissioners, our elected officials, our county administrator, taken steps to improve their recommendations, and they were, I guess, quite pleased that we'd done some things,
We had
moved in the right direction, and so they're coming by to say, we were glad you did these things, and thank you, because. Yeah. So, okay.
Just done by.
I just hope that if something like that from Treasury is communicated to our coordinator, this board is made aware moving forward. If information
Certainly
like
the
that,
finance committee.
no, it ought to be sent out to every commissioner. Every commissioner ought to know what's going on and when it's going on. Whether or not every commissioner has to attend, that's different, but when something like that, this is the fiduciary body of this county. Something that involves the Treasury should have been notified. That's on you, Mike. You should have let us know. Okay, I'm not gonna blame Tom or Caroline or anyone else. Mike should let us know.
Okay, call to the public. Would anybody else like to speak at this time? If not, meeting adjourned.
Turn that fast.
Oh, listen,